Take it away, Ms. M.
This is Pat McPherson. I'm here with my colleague Susan Creighton, and we are talking with Daniel Popowich at his home in New York City. This interview will go into the Marlboro Ale Archive, which will reside permanently at the Vermont Folklife Center in Middlebury, Vermont. It's February 25th, 2023. And Daniel, do you want to just say a few words to get your voice on the recording?
Hi, I am Daniel Popowich. In fact, I am Daniel Popowich in New York City.
Alrighty then.
In the flesh.
Whoa.
This is our second interview with Daniel. And in the first interview, we talked about your personal history with Morris dancing and your work on the Morris Ale Committee when it first started, significant events, and now we're going to talk about dancing.
Yes.
And the role of the fool.
The role of the fool.
So, you were evidently the fool for the Marlboro Morris Men for many years. Is that correct?
That is correct. I first did fooling for Oak Apple Morris when I was living in Wisconsin. And when I came to Western Mass, I didn't start fooling right away. I was just dancing in the set. And I am trying to remember when I first started fooling for Marlboro. It was before at some point I stopped dancing in the set and just fooled. But before that, I would fool now and then, and I think it was mostly for larger dance events. The Marlboro Men's Home Tour, which happened the second Saturday of May annually, and I would do it at the Ale. And sometimes, now and then at other events, but for the first several years, I was just dancing in the set as a dancer. And I'm trying to remember the first time I fooled or how that came about. And
yeah.
I wish I could remember, it was that event.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't. I just know at some point I did.
So, did this happen in rehearsal with the team or in a public performance?
It was rare that we would actually practice some shtick in the weekly practice. Did we ever actually practice a fooling? I might do things myself, like practicing for a particular, like in a stick dance, how I might move through the set. But I don't think I ever actually practiced a lot. I would certainly coach them on how I would like the rest of the guys to respond to me, which was not at all. It is funniest if they do not respond at all.
They keep on dancing and you're
on dancing. That the dancers, the set acts as the straight man, as a collective. If they are the straight man, then I can be the comic. And then I can, usually the joke would be on me, and something would happen to me in the end. But that's so. I think I might practice moving through the set, or if I was going to manipulate them in some way, do not, whatever you do, don't respond to me. Don't There's actually one thing I might practice something with a particular dancer. Like one thing I would do is in a stick dance, I might exchange one at a time through the course of the dance, their stick with some other item that was visually humorous. A blown up balloon.
A baguette.
A baguette. One time at the Marlboro Ale, I often would like a setup. Maybe because this is my theater background. I'd like my fooling to tell a story from beginning to end. So one time at Elliott Street, I had a broom and I was sweeping. So the setup is I'm just there. I'm there to clean the street, and it's hard work. And I take it very seriously. And that would be my kind of persona, the way I would approach it. I'm here, and I'm going to clean this street, damn it. And oh God, who are these guys coming up? What are they doing? They're getting in my way. And they would do their foot up, and they would come dance. And I would often do it with Ted Soulis, who was a good dancer and would not be flustered. And I worked out how we would, in a flash, exchange the broom for the stick. So he would do his foot up and back. He would end up with the broom, and I'd have his stick. And that just set up the rest of the story. What do I could go after him. What are you doing? Hey, that's my broom, And I'd try to give him back, and I would try to talk to him, and he would ignore me because I told him, whatever I do, ignore me. So I'm trying to get back my broom, and I have a stick, and he won't give it back to me. So I would throw down the stick in disgust, and I'd walk off, and I would come back with a badminton racket, and I would exchange it with the next dancer. And I would go around the set, and I would, so they would end up with a badminton racket, a balloon, a flower, and this is a stick clashing dance. And I would end with dragging out a 6-foot steel pipe. And I would make it look heavier than it was, but it was still pretty heavy, and I would drag it across the pavement. So you just hear this thing screeching, and I would hoist it up, and I'd give that to Steve Howe. And so at the last round of the dance, Steve would be dancing with a 6-foot steel pipe next to someone who has a flower, next to someone who has a balloon. And that would be the shtick. But I liked a beginning, middle, and end to the stories. And I might practice something like that stick exchange, broom exchange.
So what's traditional about the role of the fool?
Well, if you, I think it was Roy Dommett in his Morris notes kind of outlined the various roles for the various characters in a Morris team. And I actually would do a combination of two. One would be the barker. Someone who says, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. You are watching Morris. Draw the people in. And you might have a Betty or a Beautiful that can go, or a hobby, someone in a hobby horse who can go around and talk to the audience members, kind of filling that similar role of someone who's in the performance reaching out to the audience. Whereas the fool was the other way around. The fool was the audience member looking in. When we all look at some performance, many of us will imagine, could I do that? How would I be in that? I bet I'd be really good. Oh, but I'd make a fool of myself. I'd probably tremble. But in the end, you're your own hero. So I think the fooling at its best is to bring attention to it. can bring attention to moments in the dance, can help the audience see the dance, make them laugh because it can be fun, but in the end is may try to dance and can't do it, but in the end can. And in the end, they're maybe even the best dancer because they do that final leap, or they jump higher, or get in the middle of it and celebrate at the end.
Where do you said that you started fooling with Oak Apple, and did they have a fool before you joined the team?
There was someone who would fool for the team. Very, very different style of fooling. More, that person would kind of dress up court jester like and be goofy. I never liked the fooling that was goofy.
What would a goofy fool do?
Oh, it's you ever been to a Renaissance festival and there's someone dressed up as a court jester and they're just going around going la la la. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It's usually just bad. It's not funny. It's like I am being funny and everyone knows I'm supposed to be funny, so everyone's going to laugh even though nothing is funny here.
So, did you come up with your own character, which is the fool character?
Yeah, I think every fool does. I think everyone has the persona that they
Is it
they
like
inhabit,
yourself, but more yourself?
or less myself, or an anxious self, because I like the idea of, I've always liked the idea of, not all my fooling was, some of my fooling would be, I am trying to be involved and trying to do this, and I fail, but in the end I succeed. You know, it can be funny, and it can help the audience see what, because they're watching me, you can point out how something may be hard, or you can point out, you can see it better what the dancers are trying to do. Sometimes it was just a visual gag because it was funny. As I said earlier, though, I would often like to have a beginning, middle, and end, and that I think that's just my theater thing. And I think some of the best gags, best fooling are that way. I remember seeing, this wasn't really a fooling thing, it was a team thing, where a team was doing a hanky dance, and as each person, it was the dance like Saturday night, where each dancer comes out in turn and becomes another member of the set, and eventually they have 6 dancers. And the first dancer came out with a hanky that was 3 inches by 3 inches, and the next one came out with a longer, and they kept getting longer. And then the last dancer came out with essentially a bed sheet, trying to flick it as a hanky. That's just fun. I mean, it pokes fun at the Morris and is visually entertaining because it sets up beautifully the anticipation. What's the next one going to come in with? And then when the last guy comes in with effectively a bed sheet, it's and the ridiculousness of trying to flick that in the air. It's good fun. So I'd like to have that kind of beginning, middle, and end. And my character tended to be, as I described in that one shtick with the stick exchange, a little anxious, very intense, very focused, wanting to get it right, and sometimes, often, not. My probably my all-time favorite one. What I would often do is I would like to, because I like the beginning, middle, and end, sometimes I would ask a dancer to do something that would set up the story. So I'll save my favorite one of all time for later. One that I did at Newfane once. I had no idea. I didn't know what to do. Here we are at Newfane, the big final show, and I just didn't know what to do, and I wanted to do something. I didn't necessarily fool at every stand, you know. Sometimes I just let it be about the dancers, but I really wanted to do something. So I said, Matthew, take off your bell pads. So Matthew took off his bell pads, Matthew Duveneck. And he's already smiling because he knows what's probably going to come. So the guys run out in their circle and they're going out. And that allowed me to go run out after him and say, you know, pantomiming, you know, no one could actually hear what I was saying. Maybe I wasn't even saying anything, but I'm suggesting, you don't have your bells. Where's your bells? You need your bells. Oh my God, you can't dance without your bells. You know, just, and if you make it really heightened and intense, and, you know, it makes it funnier. And so, you know, then I could run off and I could grab a bell pad and I can get his bell pad. And I would ask the guys to do a corner crossing dance when I was going to do something, because a corner crossing dance, you have the opportunity to, with the corner standing still, you can do something in that moment of stillness. So the first corner thing, I'm just like chasing him around. The second one, I get a bell pad on him. The third time, I try to get a bell pad on him, and I timed it, I will say, rather well. So for his foot together jump, I didn't quite have it on, and I knew I didn't. So when he did the kick, the bell pad went whee in the air and landed. So now I'm desperate because he doesn't have a bell pad on. So I take off my own bell pad, which are straps. It's not buckles, it's just straps. And I can't get it on because now he's moving around. So I wrap one of the strings around his waist and tie it. And then I reach between his legs and I pull the bell pad up and I tie it to the back. So he had this bell pad codpiece for the final circle. And the smile on Matthew Duveneck's face, someone got a photo of it. It is the biggest, broadest smile, and a great moment. That was a lot of fun.
I remember that one.
I have a photo. I have a photo of Matthew's smile with the codpiece. We'll have to get it and make sure that gets in the archive somehow.
How did you come up with, okay, 2 questions. Is the fool also always acting in pantomime?
Not necessarily. I mean, some do, some don't. Some are quiet. I was probably a mix, you know. I would make sure that my maybe it might be a loud whisper. Maybe the audience could hear me, but it wasn't necessary for the audience to hear me. Now, sometimes I also, in Fool's Kit, I would also play the role of Barker, and I tried to distinguish the role of Fool from the role of Barker. So if I was Barker, I was okay with being in Fool's Kit to be a Barker. If I was in Fool's Kit, I would never want to dance in the set. I just refused to dance in the set because I thought that was crossing a line that took away from the theater, from the performance. Because the fool doesn't dance in the set. You know, that to me just never made sense, seeing a fool dance in the set. So in those early days, I wouldn't fool if I knew I was needed as a dancer. At some point, I physically couldn't be in a set anymore. I have a bad Achilles issue. So at some point I said, you know what, guys, I can't dance in the set anymore. I will only fool. And if you don't have a side, you don't have a side. but I won't dance. But I would, in Fool's Kit, be the barker. It was, I had this loud plaid jacket and lime green pants, and it was, it would catch your eye. So I felt it had kind of a carnival or burlesque, appearance, and it caught people's eyes. So if I was standing in front of people, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, or announcing teams, if we're in a tour, next up from Western Massachusetts, I would do that. And maybe I would fool in those moments, but not as formally as I described here, the beginning, middle, end stuff. It'd be more, if someone's hat fell off, I would grab the hat, or I might do a simple little prank, or go through the set, or if I saw a little kids would glom onto me. Maybe I would walk them through the set, and they would just be thrilled with delight. One of my all-time favorite, this should get in the records. This has nothing to do with the Marlboro Morris Ale, by the way, but the Marlboro Men would come down to New York City and dance across Central Park with the Bowery Boys on Easter Sunday, and we would start outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And one Sunday morning, we get there, and there's this little girl in a pink princess dress, and she is attached to me. I felt like her babysitter for the next 45, 50 minutes, however long we were dancing there. And she was precocious. Really smart and very precocious. And I have photos of me and her. I got my belt pad, and she was so small I actually wrapped it around her body. She was attached to me. She was my best friend, and it was a lot of fun. It was really cute. And after the stand, I kept hearing a lot of the guys on tour saying, "Is that her? Yeah, I think that's her. I'm pretty sure that's her." And I'm saying, "Who?" They said, "That's Heather Mills." And I realized for the past 45 minutes, I've been playing around with Paul McCartney's daughter. It was Beatrice McCartney.
Wow.
Yeah. So you never know who your audience is going to be.
It would be great to hear her memories of that too.
Yeah, I wonder if she has any memories.
Were you influenced in your fooling by anyone in particular, or
No,
was it?
No, I wasn't. I think it just came out of my own theater background, my own sense of the old school comics, the comics that came out of vaudeville. Carol Burnett sketches, Bert Lahr. Not from within the community, but just a sense of good old-fashioned shtick from I don't know where it came from, but I just had this innate sense that, at least the way I like to approach it. If I wasn't barking, I like to be quiet. I like to be on the outside. I like to. And when I got into the set, I was the comic to the straight men of the dancers or the musician, because I certainly had my fun with the musicians, who are really frozen. They are just stuck there. And Doug Creighton was a great straight man.
Victim.
Victim?
Victim.
Victim?
Pardon?
Victim? No, never victim.
I have a note here that says, "Putting Doug to bed."
Yes. That was at Marlboro, at Newfane. It was a final stand. And I had I would always be interested in where's Marlboro in the lineup and who's coming before and who's coming after. And I found out that Marlboro was being followed by Guiding Star Clog, and Doug was playing for both. And I had this, I can't remember where I came up with the idea. I have no idea. But I just thought, wouldn't it be funny if I could put Doug to sleep just before a clog team comes on and marches on with a bass drum. And so Doug was starting to play, and I went out, and this is one where I wanted the audience to hear, so I did in an overly large voice, "Boy, Doug, you look really tired." And next round of the dance, I come out with a chair and I sit him down in the chair and I get him a footstool. I think I may have given him a little massage. And then I went out and got him a blankie.
And he's playing the whole
And he's playing the whole time. Never. And that's the great thing about it. I could do this stuff, and I knew you learn what you can do and what you can't do. And with Doug, I can do something like that and he would never miss a beat. Ultimately, he's playing for dancers, and even to dancers, I would choose the dancers, like that thing I said with Matt Duvenek. I did that with Matt because I knew Matt could still do the dance. I wouldn't do it with a different dancer where I knew my activity would fluster them. So I could do that with Doug, and he would keep the beat, and it would still be a successful dance. But I tucked him in. I pulled up a stool next to him, and I pulled out Goodnight Moon, and I read him a goodnight story. And Doug, quick, he knew what was going on. So Doug slows down as he's coming down to the final round, and he falls asleep. And I get up and I leave him. And everyone around is like really anxious because there's Doug in the middle of the street. And I'm like telling Guiding Star, come on, you can do this, And then they finally catch on and they start marching on either side of Doug, bass drum, boom, boom, boom. And it wakes Doug up, and he gets up and he plays. And then I go and I grab the chair and rescue the chair. That was a fun one.
Have you told your favorite of all time?
No, I have not told my favorite of all time yet. Okay, my favorite of all time. Again, looking for where I could really set things up was the very first stand at Marlboro was Saturday morning, the big show dance. Right, and he'd have all the time in the world. He didn't have to worry about props that he'd have to take on tour. So this one I wanted to be elaborate, and I actually got John Todd, I knew would be game, and John knew what was going down, but no one else knew what was going down. And so John knew he needed to wear a white shirt he didn't care about. And I got a pair of black suspenders, and I gave them to John. And again, I got the guys to agree on a corner dance. So again, setting this similar kind of thing. So the guys run on in their red suspenders, except this one guy who has black suspenders on. He's out of kit. So, I come up there and say, "You got your black suspenders on," and I can't remember. Did I try to get them off them, and I couldn't because they were buttoned on. So I'm just exasperated. So the first corner crossing, I go and I get a bucket of red paint and a little paintbrush, and I'm trying to paint his black suspenders, but he keeps moving, and so I keep getting a little on his shirt. So the next round of the dance, I go and I get some painter's tape, and I tape on all around his suspenders. And I make sure I get this tape, and I'm sticking it on and patting it on, and I get the tape on either side. Setting up the ultimate, which is in the third round, I come back with a roller pan and a roller, and I just roll the red paint on his suspenders, and then I can pull the tape off at the final moment, and there he is with red suspenders on. And his shirt just destroyed. That one I really had a good time on.
We're all laughing and trying not to laugh.
No, that was a fun one. That was a fun one.
Is there any? So you have your own unique character, kit, and style.
I think so. I'm trying to think of, sadly, there aren't a lot. There were never a lot of Morris Fools. I think the most I ever counted at Marlboro were 3.
Who were they?
Me, John Mayberry, and a guy who danced with Jack and the Green. And I can't remember his name. And we all had...
Half Moon had some fools.
Oh, Half Moon would have fools when they were at they would have fooling in some of their sword dances. I'm trying to think of other teams that had a fool, or even other characters.
Right. Way back when Rhett was fooling for Longwood.
Yes.
Rapper.
This is Susan talking.
I did see in recently a young guy trying to fool for Boston team, Boston men's team, Newtown, and everyone's everyone is a little different.
You talk about. I don't know if this was a fool role or not, but when Tony was mother.
Yeah, he was definitely fooling. And I think Tony, too, would also play the role of Barker,
Did you observe him? Like,
only,
can you describe
when I moved to Western Mass, Tony was already... He was still able to walk and dance, but he was definitely in decline with his MS. I did dance with him on Green Mountain Mummers for a few years, but his Morris dancing days were already long over. I think I only saw him once. He kind of came out as mother at, I think, the 20th Marlboro Ale. And he only did a little bit, and that's all I ever got to see live.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm curious about his choice of being that character, coming from England, and other choices that other people have made, their fool character, and how it relates to the old characters that are in the Mummers plays or in Abbott's Bromley and the characters.
I think there's all some overlap.
Yeah.
Some of the same characters show up in Mummers plays. There's a fool and a Tommy you see in rapper dancing in particular. Green Mountain Mummers. Hard pressed to think of another longsword team that has fools in it, but Green Mountain Mummers did, and does. I'm still with them, or at least not officially retired with them. It's unlike Morris dancing, which has had classes and workshops and teachers and teams have foremen. Not so with fooling. I think John Mayberry once did a fooling class at English Week at Pinewoods, and that is the one and only time that just happened one year, and I don't think it's ever happened again. I had suggested it, offered it, I would love to do it, but it just never seems to fit. You know, who would do it? Who would sign up for it? How do you teach? You know, be funny now. You know, have charisma now. You know, hold an audience. You know, how do you teach these things? And certainly, I guess you can, or you can teach the theory behind it.
What's the theory behind it?
Well, just what I was saying earlier, you know, as this character, you are, one version of it is you are the audience looking in, when I was saying that earlier. And the audience imagines themselves doing this, and you as fool represent them. But you know, that's, you know, what do you how do you teach that? How do you train that? And a lot of people take a stab at it. I've known some people who have tried it and said, that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and that is the loneliest thing I've ever done, and I never want to do it again. It is very lonely. You are totally alone. You have to carry it off. So you're not in the set. You can't really hang out with the guys either. You don't look like them. As soon as you step on the stage, all eyes are on you. And you have to do something that doesn't make it all about you, even though all eyes are on you. You know, you still have a job to bring the dance to light, to highlight the dance. And it's terrifying too, because you suddenly you do realize you are performing, and there is an anonymity to being a member of the set. You know, as ridiculous as Morris dancers look, and let's face it, they look ridiculous. They're all, you know, their kits are that, and what are they doing? They're waving these hankies and they're clashing sticks, and they got bells on. They look ridiculous, but at least they're already being ridiculous together. So there's, you know, you're not singled out, you know. And I think anyone who's been a Morris dancer who finds themselves walking in kit alone to their gathering, they all feel a little self-conscious. So yeah, it's very lonely.
Do you prefer fooling over dancing in the team?
Also, you know, in some ways the decision was taken away from me because my body failed me, and so then I had to. I love fooling. You know, I'm an actor. I'm a ham. I've had some really. You know, I've shared my highlights. You know, there are a lot of duds too. You know, I'd go out there and, you know, something wouldn't work. Or it just would be vanilla fooling, you know, not a story with a beginning, middle, and end, but I would just maybe mock a dancer as they cross the set. You know, I think I'm mocking them, but they're actually dancing better than me. And you know, just kind of run of the mill. I'm a presence. You know, maybe I would do something like walk around the set. The Marlboro Men have a kit where they wore ties, and I'd walk through during a corner dance, and I would, you know, straighten out this person's tie, and oh wait, your armband is a little askew, and I'd pretend I'm giving a little pep talk. Okay, here you go, buddy. You're gonna go in. Okay, I believe in you. You know, pat him on the ass as he, you know, goes for his corner cross. So it wasn't all, you know, big stories.
Right.
And you know, or sometimes it would just be visually funny, and and there wouldn't be a story. This wasn't at the Marlboro Ale, but another time I was, again, here at Easter. We would do at that time 4 stops or 5 stops. We'd start at the museum, and then we'd be over by the toy boat pond, where the Hans Christian Andersen statue is, and there's the little boat pond where you could sail miniature boats. And then we'd go on to Bethesda Fountain, and then have lunch, and then there'd be another stand. Anyway, when we got to the little boat pond, it was drained. It was empty. And it just struck me, oh my God, that'd be so funny if I stood out in the middle of that dry pond. So Doug played for me and Ted Sulis, who did a jig, and Ted was on the lip, and I was way out in the middle of the pond. And it was just really visually funny, especially considering that I was so far away. Doug's music was getting to me a little late, so I was dancing to the music I was hearing, but I think I was off of what the people were hearing. So we thought that was kind of funny. There I was in the middle of a dry mud bed, way out in the distance dancing. We go on to Bethesda Fountain, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's a real pond with real water in it. Okay, I know how I need to follow that up. So I got a 3-person jig, and then we stood in a triangular formation. So I got 2 guys were up on the dry land, and I stood in the pond on the steps, and did the jig there. And splash! It was a hanky dance. I'm splashing water. I'm drenched. I discover how slimy those steps are underwater. I was slipping all over the place. I went under. It's actually on video. It's on YouTube. It's quite the sight. So that was just nothing more than just ridiculous fun. Yeah.
But it's a lot of spontaneity. It's a
Yeah,
lot of
it's
going in and looking what you have to work with your setting,
looking at the
flow.
moment and finding. Another thing I would do is I had a bag of those wiffle golf balls, and I would find kids, and I'd be playing catch with them. And so I'd have a bucket of them, and I would toss them one, and I'd say, okay, throw it into the bucket. And I would work my way into the middle of the set. And the kids are just delighted. They're throwing them in the bucket. And then I would, of course, on accident, by purpose, I would, do something with the bucket such that all the balls would go flying into the air, and there'd be dozens of these golf balls where all the dancers are trying to dance. And I'd say, uh-oh, and I would have to run around, and I would have to grab them, and I would hand the kid the bucket, try to involve the kids, because it just, again, it brings attention to the dance. And, fishing all the buckets and the ball. And I remember one time, a little kid, was really, really delighted with this. He just loved it. This precious little boy with cherub cheeks. I just wanted to squeeze him. And he was filled with tears. He had a little tear because he had found a ball and he wanted to give it back. Or his dad was saying he had to give it back to me. And he handed it to me. And I said, no, you have it. And the delight on his face, just the smile, spontaneous smile, because I handed him this little golf ball. It was just a beautiful, tender moment. I remember walking away from that saying, that's why I do what I do. It's just so sweet through this silly thing that we do to make a connection through song and dance.
And it's a wrap.
That is a good place to end it.
Thank you.